Hello, my name is Jared Selleck. I'm reporting from my apartment in corona-ridden Tampa, Florida, because that's the only safe place to be. And I'm gonna do the news real quick. It's not gonna be good because we have the unfortunate experience of being alive in July 2020, and all the news is bad. So let's go. Today on July 17, 2020, the Supreme Court of the United States failed to address what is effectively a poll tax implemented by the Republican legislature here in Florida on returning citizens who recently got their vote restored as a result of the 2018 ballot initiative. Just a bit of background. Prior to 2018, Florida was among the very few states that did not automatically restore voting rights to individuals when they were released from prison. The other states that don't automatically do that are Iowa, Kentucky, and Virginia. And additional context for viewers all over the world, the United States does not allow incarcerated people to vote while they're in prison, with the exception of Maine and Vermont. And in every other state, voting rights are restored under different criteria. Sometimes it's before probation, sometimes it's after probation. Every state kind of has a different rule for it. And prior to 2018 in Florida, the only way to get your voting rights back was to be personally pardoned by the governor, which happened very rarely. Now, that very bad system was amended by the good people of Florida via ballot initiative, which is generally the only way that good things happen in Florida. Don't get me wrong, we also pass bad ballot initiatives. They're not universally great. Amendment 4 this go around is you have to vote twice to do a ballot initiative again. You don't get the opportunity to vote multiple days. You have to come in one day and then come in day and vote again. It's just voter suppression. It's bad, but that's not what this video is about. The ballot initiative passed with 64.5% of the vote in a decisive victory, thanks very much to a lot of the voting rights advocates as well as the ACLU and the 1630 Fund. Now, you'd think this huge victory would result in it getting implemented rather quickly. Shouldn't be rather controversial since it passed so heartily, and it had to have been passed on a bipartisan basis because, with 64.5% of the vote, it had to have been. For context, the gubernatorial race between Ron DeSantis and Andrew Gillum, Ron DeSantis won by 0.4% of the vote, so there had to have been some crossover there ideologically. And for what it's worth, on a purely anecdotal basis, I spoke to some Republicans saying they voted for it, despite the fact they thought it might help Democrats in future elections, which there's not a lot of data to support. But despite the fact that they thought that, they still thought, hey, voting rights are important, so I'm going to support this. But the Florida legislature did not share that opinion. The amendment should have granted 1.4 million previously incarcerated individuals back their right to vote, but instead the GOP-controlled legislature implemented what essentially surmounts as a poll tax in the form of forcing every one of those people to have to pay back their court fees in order to be able to vote. A stipulation that was definitely not on the ballot that we all looked at and that we all voted on. And what's worse is that there is no system to let previously incarcerated people know about their outstanding fees. And there is no easy way for them to go and pay them, or even know that they have fees. And if you go into the voting booth and vote with having those fees over your head, you can be charged with voter fraud, which I imagine previously incarcerated people aren't going to want to do. And the Florida legislature has a long history of pulling these kind of shenanigans. In the county that I live in Hillsborough County here in Tampa, we voted for a 1% sales tax that would go toward our infrastructure and transportation. And the Florida legislature decided that they didn't want a 1% sales tax, and they said, no, Hillsborough County, you can't say that you want to improve transportation. You gotta have less bike lanes. So the news today is a result of voting rights groups and previously incarcerated folks fighting the government to restore their right to vote, trying to make sure that they don't have to deal with a poll tax, which was made illegal in, the 24th Amendment. And they fought that fight all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's stance on it was to not have a stance. Now, no honest person believes that this is an actual disagreement between people being like, oh, should they have to pay their fees or shouldn't they? No, this is all about Florida's 29 electoral college votes, and everyone knows it, and anyone who says otherwise is being dishonest. Now, former Vice President Joe Biden is currently in the lead of the polls in Florida, but historically, the margins that win Florida are very small. Need I remind you of the 0.4% lead that won DeSantis the governor's chair? Now, this story is just another example of the overt voter suppression that exists in our system. you'll be surprised to hear that Democrats outnumber Republicans in Florida right now, and yet they always control the Florida legislature. They usually have more of our congressional House seats, and that's a result of the overt gerrymandering that exists in this state. Now, everyone knows that this is a partisan issue. Republicans are doing this so that, previously convicted folks don't go out and vote, and they think that gives them an advantage in the election. But even though it's all politics or whatever, it is also something that continues to ostracize people who have, served their debt to society. It also makes me lose a lot of hope that even if we do the work and get some good things on the ballot, like this year we have a $15 minimum wage on the ballot, it makes me lose hope in the system. It makes me think even if we pass this universally, which I think we likely will, I just know the Republican legislature is going to mess with it. And that makes me lose hope in the system. And it makes other people lose hope in the system. And that's kind of the point.